So I don't know if we have anybody on there or not.
We have a couple people. I see them at my end. And so welcome everybody. Welcome to the first webinar of our 6-week webinar series for solving the puzzle to financial literacy. My name's Janet Reese. I'm from the Money Counselor. And my co-host tonight is Eric Tibble from Do It Yourself Wealth
Education.
Thank you. So tonight we're going to, our topic tonight is RRSPs, TFSAs, and WTF. And you know, that was a bit of a joke between us because in reality, I think that the financial industry does a really good job of keeping people confused about their finances, don't they?
Yeah, I've learned that basically they will never tell you anything bad for you, but nothing that is better for you than it is for them.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the reasons that we agreed to do this webinar was to create some clarity. I'm gonna mute you while I'm talking because it's really loud, okay? Okay, sorry about that, guys. You know what? It is what it is. He has no hydro at his house. This is his third Tim Hortons, so we're just gotta make the best of it, right? So basically, the financial industry does a really good job of keeping people confused, keeping people overwhelmed. And you know, I want to share that I've been trying to find somebody to do this type of series with me for almost 5 years now. And one of the reasons that I haven't been able to find anybody is because everybody's scared to talk about these types of things in a public forum. They're afraid of, you know, saying the wrong thing. They have to get approval for everything. And to me, it's like, what are you trying to hide? Like, why can't we have a conversation to share with people so that you as a consumer can work with a financial professional and not be totally in the dark of what you're doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, it would be nice for people to have some basis of knowledge in order to get to that next step when working with professionals on the topics that we have in this series. So I just wanted to share with you what my intent was, why we're here, and really, you know, the bottom line is that people need to know. People deserve to know, and I'm really excited to do this with you guys and for you guys today. And I'm going to unmute Eric, and I think he's been able to hear me. Have you been able to hear what I've had to say, Eric?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. So do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I'm just curious. Does that make the noise any less?
Does what make the noise any less?
Okay, I thought I found the microphone and I could cover it, but I guess
No,
not.
It doesn't. Sorry. I think just for the future, you need an earphone with the speaker that's here. And if you had that to hook up to your computer, I think that would be ideal. Okay?
Well, hopefully the next time I'll have hydro and internet at home and that won't be an issue.
Hopefully, right? But it's always good to know to have that, you know, like closed almost microphone, if you will. So let's get started, Eric. You know, today's topic, RRSPs, TFSAs. When I work with clients, they ask me questions about these things and I'm not licensed to answer their questions. However, I do share from my common sense perspective what I know, but I always refer people to a professional like yourself. So, number one question is, what the heck are they? Like, what the heck are an RRSP and a TFSA? In common terms, okay?
Well, really, the easiest way to explain that is both of them are nothing more than a box that we put stuff in. It's simply a way for Revenue Canada to separate out what you're doing from one thing or another. That's why they actually have to be registered. So that's why it's called a registered retirement savings plan. And also your TFSA is registered so that the Canada Revenue Agency knows what's going on. They are nothing more than a container that we can put things in that have rules about what goes in, how it comes out, and how the income inside of each one of them is treated. So they're similar in a lot of ways, but they're different in some very major ways.
Okay. So what you're saying to me is that technically they're a tool used by the government to track people's investments. Would that be fair?
Yeah. The problem is most people don't put any investments into it.
Yeah.
The TFSA is a savings account, so all they do is throw cash in it, which is probably the worst thing that you can do. You'll find that we're now coming into RRSP season, where the bank wants you to put all kinds of money into your RRSP. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but maybe you should fill up your TFSA first. And that's kind of what we need to kind of talk about today is when do I use which one? So a lot of people, or very few people today, have a pension plan from work.
Right.
And a lot of companies, what they do is they will match your RRSP contribution. And that's a really good thing to do. If your company does that, I don't care if they match it 10 cents for every dollar you put in, that's the way to go. Because if they match it dollar for dollar, you just made 100% return on your investment. You're not getting that anywhere. So if your company is doing that, then you definitely want to be working with your RRSP. If your company's not doing that or has got nothing for you, you may want to fill up your TFSA first. And the reason for that is that the money that you take out of your RRSP, when you take it out, you have to pay tax on it. When you take money out of your TFSA, as it says, tax-free. You never pay any tax on it. And there's a lot of other rules as well, but that's sort of the first one. If you're getting money from your employer to match your RRSP contribution, that's what you should do. If you're not, you may want to think about it.
Right. So looking at these two products as a form of control from the government's perspective, right? Then really we go back to the fact that the purpose of them for a consumer like myself and the people watching, the point is to encourage us to save money for our retirement. Is that the case?
Absolutely. The TFSA started back in the late 50s when they already realized that there was no way that the Canada pension was going to be able to supply people with enough money to have a dignified retirement. So the thing was, let's encourage Canadians to save money for their retirement. So that's when they brought in the RRSP. The big sales feature with the RRSP is a lot of times if you put money into your RRSP, the government, you pay less on your income tax and the government sends you back a check. That sounds wonderful, and for a lot of people getting a $300 or $500 check is wonderful. I get to buy that new TV I want. That's how they catch you. The problem is that yeah, you're gonna pay whatever the government sends you for a return right now. You're gonna pay that money back when it comes time to take it out. And that's what people don't realize. The RRSP is really a tax deferred plan. It's not a tax free. And they tell you that, gee, when you retire, you will make less income than you are when you're working. Won't argue that. The only problem is when you're working, you are taxed on employment income. When you take money out of your RRSP, you're taxed as to what kind of income it is. Is it interest? Is it dividends? It's no longer earned income. And what most people don't realize is that a lot of RRSPs are basically set up to give you interest type payments. Interest is charged at the highest possible tax rate it can be. If you switch over to something like Canadian dividend paying stocks, the government always wants you to invest in Canadian companies, so they give you all kinds of tax breaks. You might pay income tax on a Canadian dividend as low as 10%. So it's not really a lie, but it's not the absolute truth.
Okay, so
it's not earned income when it comes out.
Right, so let's stay focused because we don't want to confuse the viewers, right? Because it becomes a little overwhelming to keep track. So we want to stay focused. I think, Eric, honestly, I think you and I are going to redo this as the recording because the quality is really bad. Like it's just way too loud.
Okay.
But we're going to continue on for the people who are participating today, okay? But we're going to redo this for the recording because it's just, it's very difficult. So when we talk
nobody
about
expected
nobody
expected to have to lose the hydro and not for over a day.
And because it's our first one, we didn't really have a plan B, but now we will have a plan B, right?
Yep.
So when it comes to an RRSP, I think one of the things we have to remember is what you've already said. It's for retirement. Right? It's for retirement. The TFSA and the RSP is not a savings account for saving for a car, for saving for a vacation, for saving to pay off debt down the road because we needed a new roof. The goal is to save that money and never touch it so that it's there for our retirement, correct?
Well, that is definitely why they have the RRSP. The TFSA is a little different.
Okay.
That you can use for anything you want. If you want to save up for a vacation, that's the best place. But the point is, don't treat it as a savings account. Put the savings in there, and then put it into some sort of an investment vehicle, whether it's a GIC or not a TFSA, a mutual fund or a stock or a bond.
So work with a financial advisor.
Yes.
And work with a financial advisor so that the money in the TFSA, correct me if I'm wrong, starts working for you.
Absolutely, and it should be working as hard as it possibly can.
Okay, so that's one of the differences, right? Is an RSP is directly into whether it be mutual funds usually, right?
Again, the RRSP can be mutual funds, it can be stocks, it could be gold, it could be silver.
Okay.
I just found that out a few weeks ago that you can actually hold gold and silver in either one.
Wow.
Okay, so like if you bought gold way back when it was $600 an ounce and you've got 21 ounce gold coins, you just made yourself a lot of money.
Yeah.
Gold's about $1,500 now.
Right.
And you can hold that in either account. But the idea is that your RRSP is really there to help you at retirement. That's what they planned it for.
Right, and the tax is deferred so that when you take that money out, if you're making $100 grand now, you're going to be taxed at a high rate. Whereas at retirement, the likelihood of you making that amount of money is a lot less. So you pay less tax, right?
That's the theory, yes.
Okay, so what you said about a TFSA is interesting to me. So what you're saying is that we can use the TFSA as a tool to save for goals.
Absolutely. That's the best place to do it.
The short-term goals, right?
But again, it shouldn't be used just as a savings account because most TFSAs will pay 2% interest, which is better than a savings account, but it's not your money working real hard. It's sitting in an easy chair, sipping on a Mai Tai. It's not working hard.
Right.
Same thing. Okay, put it into a mutual fund, put it into a GIC, put it into something that works harder. All of those things you can cash out when you need them. So like if you're saving for, let's say you're saving for a new car in 3 years. In 3 years, you can cash that out. Whatever money that you happen to make because you put it either into a GIC or a mutual fund, you get to take all of that out and you don't pay taxes on any of it. You don't get a refund when you put anything in, okay? But you don't pay anything when you take it out.
So what you're saying is that, so again, you know, one of the reasons I'm doing this series is for my clients, right? So what you're saying is if my clients have a short-term goal of buying a car and they want to save $20,000, then if they save it through a TFSA and they work with a financial advisor like yourself, and they deposit, what's 20,000 divided by 2 years? It's about.
Well, if they're saving for 5 years, if they put in $4,000, that would be fine. But gee, wouldn't it be nice if they only had to put in 2,000, and because of the vehicle that or the investment that they're using in their TFSA, when it comes time to pull it out, it is actually worth $20,000.
Well, and that's what I was going for. That's what I was saying was that's kind of would be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it?
Yes. And the beauty of it is the money that you take out of a TFSA is yours. If you take out money from your RRSP, you actually have to claim that as income, which means, let's say you get unemployed for, I don't know, 8 weeks, and you want to take $5,000 out of your RRSP to make some bill payments. First of all, you're not going to get the full 5,000. You'll probably get about 4,500 because they're going to withhold income tax, just like on your paycheck, before they even give it to you. But then you're actually going to have to claim on your income tax that you made an extra $5,000. So that could almost put you into a higher tax bracket, and now you're going to have to pay more tax on everything else you made. Or worst case scenario, EI is based on how much you make. Well, gee, you're making an extra 5,000. We maybe paid you way too much EI. You owe us that back at the end of the year. That never happens to the TFSA.
Right, and that's really dangerous when it comes to these types of financial decisions, is when people don't consider all those aspects and they make financial decisions, they're not looking at the big picture, right? And I'll give you an example. I had a client who was self-employed and refinanced to get money to do a renovation. And they ended up having to pay HST because they claimed a higher income in order to qualify, but they got nailed because of HST, right? And so, you know, when I see people try to make things work, sometimes that's a very nearsighted solution. And that when we make financial decisions about our investment, about RSPs, TFSAs, anything like that, that we have to work with somebody who has maybe a broader perspective. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And working with you as a client, not for the quick fix and the quick paycheck, who's really looking at your best interests and looking at the overall scenario. Would you agree, Eric?
Well, that's sort of the thing. The bank does not go out of their way to explain how all of this stuff works, and one works against the other. Money is a game, and it's just like playing Monopoly.
Yeah,
if you know all the rules about how to play Monopoly, you got a chance of winning. But if you sit down and nobody explains the rules to you, and you don't even know what you're doing, you're not going to win at the game of Monopoly. And that's what I find so disturbing, is that a lot of that information that people really should have so that they can make the right decision for their situation isn't out there. They don't know what it is. It's like, you know, the bank has been advertising, I should invest in an RRSP. Let's do that. But they don't think about anything else because they don't really know there's any other way to do it. And that's what's got to change. To me, that's what has to change.
That's right. And we don't know what we don't know. And
unfortunately.
Right. And one of the aspects to my work, which is very limited because it doesn't do investments in insurance, but the reality is what are all my choices? What are all my options? I just inherited, you know, $50,000. I want to know what all my options are. And that's how I kind of coach my clients to talk to financial investors and banks. Is don't ask them, what should I do with this? Hey, what are my options? And what are the pros and cons of each of them? And to me, you know, getting a vibe from people is really important, because I find that when people deal with financial advisors, they feel stupid. They feel intimidated. And let's face it, I think the industry does a lot of that on purpose. You know, you've got the suit and you've got the fancy office. And my clients are not encouraged to ask questions. And even the language of the financial industry is above people's head to keep them in their place, right?
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people making financial decisions that really are to their detriment, you know?
Yep.
What do you think about that, Eric?
Well, to me, that's always been the thing. If you don't know enough, I mean, I remember the first time I had someone come in and talk about mutual funds, and they showed me all these fancy charts and all these returns, and in the end, he turns around, well, I think you should put money in here and money in here. And I'm as same as everybody else. I don't want to appear like I'm stupid. So I said, yeah, okay, that sounds good. I have no idea what he said. And I have no idea why I'm doing it. And that's wrong. You need to sit down and understand and talk to people. Why should I use this fund? Why shouldn't I use this fund? What's a management expense ratio? How do they show up? What do they mean to me?
And so, you know, I think the purpose is that, number one, don't be afraid to ask questions. You have the right to know as a consumer. It's just like you going to a restaurant and ordering dinner. If it's not if you can't identify what that is, you have the right to say, what the heck is this? This is not what I ordered. And so the financial industry really is no different, but it creates this air about it that you don't deserve to know, and oh, you won't understand, right? And so I really want this series to be about empowering people, that you have the right to ask questions, you have the right to understand. And if somebody explains it to you in a way that sounds like a different language, then you have the right to say, that all went right over my head. Can we back it up a little bit and maybe do the Coles Notes version in a language that makes sense to me as a place to start? Okay? And you shouldn't feel stupid for doing that. How else are you to learn? Like, how else do we learn if we don't ask and if we don't understand? And if somebody's treating you in a way that makes you feel less than them or stupid, that's probably not the professional for you, right?
Well,
what do you think, Aaron?
That's kind of where it boils down to. You can, yeah, I mean, if you really don't understand what's going on, I guess my question is, do you really want to deal with somebody? Do you want to give your hard-earned money to somebody who's going to do something, but they can't even explain in language you understand what they're going to do with it?
Exactly.
And there are so many people out there that you have a choice. It's like a bank. If you went into one bank and you didn't like it, okay, so let's go down the street to the next one, and so on. And if you don't like banks, well, gee, maybe we should try a credit union.
Yes.
You go until you find somebody that is doing and telling you what you need.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of these guys go in and do a call in 20 minutes. I don't think I've ever done a call in under 2 hours, because there's just way too much that you have to explain. Too many things you have to show, and like use analogies that people understand. Finance is not that hard.
Relatable.
You know, if you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, you know everything you need to know to be a financial genius.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I want to go back to the point about, like, if you don't feel comfortable asking, or if you're not getting the response that feels comfortable, like, let's get it. In today's reality society, we're all so busy, right? And really a lot of the factor is time. You know, the last thing I want to do is go to my third financial advisor to ask questions to be treated like I'm a moron, right? Like, I totally get it. But what I want people who are watching this webinar to understand is this is the foundational stuff. Once you find the person, you're set. Then you can build on your knowledge. You can build that rapport and that relationship. But it's the finding of the person that really is the most important part, right?
Well, speaking of analogies, I mean, how many times has somebody needed some advice from a lawyer, and they phone them up and the guy says, well, yeah, if you give me your credit card for $50, I'll give you an answer. Okay, is that really the lawyer you should be dealing with? You know, somebody that says, okay, here, I'll answer your questions, but if you have problems or something like that, come in and see me. I always judge things that if somebody wants to sell me something right off the bat, that's not good. If somebody gives me some information that's valuable, definitely not going to turn me into a genius right away, but that gives me valuable information for free, that's somebody that I know I can go back and ask a question to and say, okay, hey, look, you know, I'm ready to do some investing. What do I really need to know? You've told me this, but that's just enough to be dangerous. So how do we get past that point? But if you get somebody who comes in and basically says, well, you know, little lady, here's what I think you should do, get up, walk out, because that person is not going to be the financial advisor that you're going to need and want to work with. I agree. You shouldn't feel bad.
No. And you know what's interesting to me is, for those of you who don't know, I teach people money management, right? So I help them create simplistic and consistency with their day-to-day money management, their debt, their goals, their bills, all of that stuff, right? And it does. It's a very time-consuming job. It takes me about 5 hours to work with a client. And what's interesting to me is we are advertised and we are shown. You know, I'm going to try to share the picture. So I hope I don't screw anything up, but I'm going to try. Okay. We're basically told to invest and do all of these other things. And a lot of people need to get that bottom level of money management skills in place first, right? Because again, if we have consumer debt, now this is one of the questions from one of my clients. And what time is it? 8:30. So I'm gonna go into this question, right? Because it really speaks to what I'm trying to say. So I have a client, they have debt. They have $30,000 of consumer debt. Their question to me was, should I cash in my RRSP? Eric, I'm gonna let you answer that.
Okay, first of all, for me, that's not enough information. Realistically, yes, you want to get rid of your debt as fast as you possibly can. There's a thing out there called either debt stacking or debt snowball, that sort of thing. I would probably consider that long before I got rid of my RRSP. Now, if you have an RRSP that's making you 2% a year and you're paying 19% a year on your debt, okay, you do the math. which one is going to get you further ahead. The problem is, if you clear out your debt and all you do is start over running it back up again, you didn't do anything.
That's right.
If you pull your money out of your RRSP, pay off your debt and say, okay, I was spending $1,000 a month on debt servicing. I don't have a debt now. I'm going to take that $1,000 and go put it back into my RRSP every month. Then you've done something correctly. That I could agree with. But if all you're going to do is drain your RRSP to pay off your debt and then start buying things on your credit card again,
Absolutely not.
I'm sorry, you need to give your head a shake. That doesn't make sense.
Well, and you know, really, again, rather than the head a shake, we need to recognize that people need to get to the root of the problem, right? We need to address why we're keep incurring debt, as opposed to look for another Band-Aid solution, right? Because
Yeah.
I totally agree. I don't think people should cash in their RSPs to pay off debt, but there are other factors. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest factors are you at risk? Are you at risk of losing your home? Right? Because when I'm working with a client who's in an at-risk situation, then that certainly is going to come into that picture to be considered whether or not that would be a wise choice. Because again, you know, when I work with people, much like any financial person should be, my job is to show you all the options that I see and help you prioritize which ones are best for you. Is that fair? Is that the role of a financial advisor as well, Eric?
Yeah, I can't tell you that I have ever sat down with any client that was even remotely close to another client. Everybody has their own situation, and realistically, you have to deal with the person's situation. If you have somebody who just can't save, that's where somebody like you needs to come in to kind of help show them what they can do. I can help when you want to improve the return that you're getting on what you are saving. That's sort of where I come in.
Right.
I can show you where you want to save, but that's more your job.
So when it comes to that TFSA, let's get back to what we were here. What are the advantages that, like, to me, they feel like two very different avenues that are getting you to a different place?
Yeah, they actually are. The TFSA was really designed just to get people to save for things like vacations, a new car, that sort of thing.
Right.
But there's a really good reason why you can put 18% of your total income into an RRSP every year, but you can only put this year $6,000 into your TFSA. How come the big difference? It really boils down to something simple: tax. The money that you grow in your let's use an example. Let's say you put the same amount in your RRSP and the same amount in your TFSA.
Right.
At retirement, let's say 40 years later, you've got 500,000 in both. As soon as you pull money out of your RRSP, you're going to be taxed on it. As soon as you pull money out of your TFSA, there's no tax, there's nothing, it's your money, just go ahead and spend it on whatever you want. You can even, that makes a big difference. I see a lot of people using an RRSP to save for the down payment on a house. Yes, you can do that. You can take money out of your RRSP, put it down on your house, and you don't have to claim it as income that year. But you have, it's either 12 or 15 years. It's been a rough day, so I'm not sure which.
It was 10 years when I did it.
Yeah, the government changes it as they go along, but between 12 and 15 years to pay it back.
Right.
But you have to pay back either 1/12 or 1/15 every single year. And if you don't, you have to claim that much as extra income.
Right.
So, and I don't know about you, but if you've been living in an apartment where your rent includes the heat, the hydro, and the superintendent comes in and does all the fixing, and suddenly you buy a house, expenses have just really increased. So the budget you used to have that allowed you to save that money to put back into your RRSP is already gone. But now, what if we did it the other way and we used a TFSA? I put the same amount of money into my TFSA. I invested in the same things. I make the same amount of money. I take the money out of my TFSA. I don't tell anybody. The government really doesn't care. Nobody wants you to pay it back. You don't have to claim it as income. Wow, what a way better way to save for a house, because now if your expenses go up, there's nothing you have to do to take money and put it back away again. That's a huge difference. It's the same if you're unemployed. Yeah, it's just,
right?
the TFSA is your money, and the beauty of it is you can invest it in exactly the same things as you do your RRSP. The other thing, when you get older, your RRSP has to, at age 71, be converted into a RIF, a retirement income fund. And basically what that means is they want that thing drained in 20 years. You have to take out that money to drain it. Like, whether you need it or not, you have to take it out. With a TFSA, if you don't want to drain it, you don't have to. And it's fantastic. If you want to leave it for your kids, just make them the beneficiaries. And when you die, the money gets handed to them. No probate, no lawyers, no nothing. Straightforward. Now you can pretty well do the same thing with your RRSP as well. But the TFSA is just so simple.
So Eric, let me mention, like, so the TFSA, one of the things that I see a lot with my clients is that they're putting money in their TFSA. I'm going to mute you for a second. They're putting money in their TFSA with, you know, the banks are basically selling them the TFSA. You know, you should have a TFSA, right? So people say, okay, yeah, I'll have a TFSA. And then they put money into their TFSA, and they put money into their TFSA, and because they're not saving money, they may have a car repair, or, you know, hockey starts, and everybody who has their kids in hockey knows how big a hit that is, right? And then they take that money out of their TFSA, and I see a lot of my clients putting money in, taking money out, putting money in, and I just want to know, like, how does that affect them? And is there any detriment to that, of them using that TFSA as just a kind of like emergency account or something?
No, there's really nothing wrong with that at all. That's, matter of fact, that's really was the government's intention when they brought it out. You can't do that with your RRSP. So let's give people something they can do that with. So while they're saving, put the money in the TFSA. When hockey season arrives, let them pull some money out. They don't have to claim it. It's simple. It's straightforward. It's your money. Do with it what you want.
So I've seen paperwork. Like, doesn't the government send you paperwork with your TFSA on it every year for income tax or something?
Basically, what they'll do on your income tax is say, here's how much room you've got left in your TFSA. That's it. Okay. Now, so don't put in more than you're supposed to. If you put in more than you're supposed to, there is a penalty.
Oh, really?
So
is that for the year?
It's the same thing for an RRSP. If you put in more than you're allowed, there's a penalty. In the RRSP, you're allowed a one-time, lifetime overpayment of $2,000. But if you have used that up and you put money in again, the government's going to charge you 1% of whatever amount you exceeded what you were allowed to put in as interest. You got to pay them back. Okay, and it's very similar to the TFSA. That's why you need to know what the rules are, and you need to understand how much room have I got, how much have I put in, what's left. Because they're pretty strict on that, especially on the TFSA, because if I put 25,000 into it, I get into, let's say, a really nice stock and it doubles and I can pull $50,000 out, the government doesn't get any of that. If I do the same thing in the RRSP, the government will eventually get the tax on whatever money was made. So they really don't want you to use your TFSA because it costs them money. It's just that simple. We've been given a gift. We just don't know what it is. We don't know how important it is.
Yeah. And we don't really recognize the value of that gift, do we?
That's the problem, because I see too many of my clients that have got this $5,000 sitting in their TFSA in cash that they're getting 2% a year on, instead of putting it into a mutual fund or a dividend paying stock that's given them 12 or 14% a year, or something that pays monthly and they're kind of compounding every month what they're getting. It's a matter of making, I don't care where it is, an RRSP or a TFSA, you got to make that money work as hard for you as you do for it. Because let me tell you something, there's a thing called the cash flow quadrant, and the best one is the fourth quadrant, which is the investor. That's where your money makes your money. Very little effort involved, except minding your money, and that's a lot more effort than people realize.
I was actually going to risk my technical skills here to share the screen of no, I'm scared to. I'm not going to do it tonight, but one of the things I want to say about that is it's so important to get your money working for you. And I have a diagram. I'm going to actually send it out to the participants in financial wellness. And there's nothing like it online, like on the internet available. And so I created this picture of a house, and at the bottom level, it has expenses, budgeting, your credit score, like all the foundational money skills that people need to have in order to live their best financial, like in order to feel financially well. Well, the next level of the house is where RRSPs are, and your retirement and insurance and all of these other top tier aspects to finances. And it's so funny because society pushes those top tier financial aspects onto us that makes consumers think that that's what we have to do and that's what we should do. But in reality, it's way better to get that bottom tier in place. It's better to have very little consumer debt. It's better to have an excellent credit rating. It's better to have a money management system that you only have to invest 5 minutes a week in first before you go to that next tier. Because not only will the information stick and resonate with you, because you're not scrambling in your day-to-day finances, feeling stressed about debt, fighting with your spouse about bills, right? And this isn't a push for working with me. This is reality. Day-to-day money management can be very overwhelming and stressful for people, right? And so when we understand that that's kind of like money 101, and we look after that piece, and if you, the viewers, feel peaceful around your day-to-day money management, you don't have credit cards that are costing you hundreds of dollars a month. You're not paying insurance in 14 different places and hoping that you're covered. Do you know what I mean? Like when you have all those pieces in place, then when you work with a financial advisor around investing for specific things, that's going to make a whole lot more sense to people, won't it? Won't you, Eric? Like, doesn't that just make sense, Eric? Like, that's kind of common sense, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's to me, I hate to go back to it, but we played Monopoly at Christmas, so it kind of brought it back to the forefront of my thinking. You have the people that go around the board and are happy collecting $200 every time they pass go, and that works wonderful until you land on even Baltic Ave, but the guy's got 3 houses on it, and you just spent $200 in rent. So what are you going to do for the rest of the board? And that's what I see probably 75% of Canadians are doing. They're passing go, they're collecting their $200, and they're paying rent every time they land on somebody else's spot.
And that's kind of that paycheck to paycheck mentality, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, give credit to the education system. That's what they teach you to do. That's what they train you to do. They train you to be a good employee. They do not teach an entrepreneurial mindset. And there's nothing wrong with being an employee. I live by I live by the mantra that I work to generate cash so that I can invest to generate wealth. You got to get cash from somewhere. The easiest way to do that is go to work. Just number one secret of wealth accumulation. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. So you can be a lawyer that makes $1 million a year, but if you spend $1.5 million, the guy who's working in a factory making $60,000 a year and saving 30 of it is way better off than the guy making $1 million.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Like, that's the fascinating part of what I see is I work with a lot of people who have a lot of money. And what's interesting is when I look at homelessness prevention with different clientele, with people that have less, oh, there's a mosquito, with people with a lot less money, what's interesting is they have the same money stress, right? So you can be earning $30,000 a year or $300,000 a year. The stress is so similar, it's uncanny. It's just, it's bizarre. And people kind of look at me sometimes when I share that, but it's the truth. You know, they may drive a more expensive car. They might live in a bigger house. You know, those factors may be different, but at the end of the day, their day-to-day money stress is the same. And to me, that's the hurdle that people need to get past to clear out their mind, you know, to clear and simplify their life so that these types of, you know, opportunities and these, you know, products, because that's what they are, right? Right, Eric? They are products. You know, people make money off of.
To me, it also boils down to, I've run into this now, particularly with young people, sort of 35 and under.
Right.
They sort of have this idea that, gee, if I'm going to save, I've got to save $500 a month. And it's like, no, you need to save $25 a month. Because if you can do that, you can build that. If you save $25,000 a month and you invest that for 40 years at 6%, I think it's $280,000 is what it's worth at $25 a week. So it's like, oh, I don't have enough to save. Yes, you do. And the sooner you do it, the better. It's not the amount, it's the habit that you really need to get. And then the next habit after that is, okay, I've got some money. How do I get it working hard? Do I put it in a mutual fund? Do I put it in a stock? Do I put it in a GIC? And there are almost grades of where you go. You've started with a savings account. Let's jump to a GIC. From a GIC.
Let's face it, Eric, that's something that you can do with people. Like, we're not really teaching people to be their own investment person. That's a whole nother level, right? But they can work with somebody like you who can educate them on the differences and then choose to do it themselves or choose to do it with you, right? And I loved what you said. Your advice about saving money, there's no client I've ever worked with that I haven't made that recommendation. Because again, because the banks have created almost a dependency on them, right? We want a house, we have to get a mortgage. We want a car, we have to get a loan. We have to pay for something that we don't have money for, we use credit. So it becomes a habit more than anything else. But what happens, and the most common thing that I see is people paying down their credit. Oh, I got paid a little bit extra. I'm going to put a little extra on my credit card. Oh, I'm going to throw another $200 on that credit card. Oh, it's Christmas. I got money. I'm going to put an extra $400 on that credit card. And then what happens if we're not saving? what happens is the brakes go in the car, they're $800 to get fixed, and now you have to use the credit card to pay for it because you don't have any savings. And so it's really, really important for people to understand that the RRSP and the TFSA are tools. They're wealth building tools, correct? They both have different purposes. But if we don't have that step before down pat, then we're not going to be using those types of tools effectively. Because like Eric said, if your money is sitting in there getting 2%, or if your RSP is getting 10% if you're lucky a year, well, if your credit is costing you 20 or 30% a year, you're kind of working against yourself, right? So it's important that the people who are viewing this series understand that the ideal scenario, and again, this is from the money counselor's perspective, I'm going to get you to talk on this, Eric, when I'm done, is to do both at the same time. What do you think, Eric?
Well, that's sort of what I run into is people say, well, gee, I'm an employee, what can I do? Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do, especially nowadays with the internet. You can start an online business or a website or something like that for like $100. You can register a business as a sole proprietorship in Ontario for around $65. So that starts opening up. You start moving from being an employee to a business, self-employed. Then the next thing is, gee, if I cannot figure out how to make this thing work to where if somebody else does the same thing I do, it'll work for them. Now you become a business owner. You developed a business system that you can sell that will make other people successful as long as they follow the system. And then from there, it's basically you start taking all this extra money that comes in and start saying, well, gee, now I got to make this money, go out and make more money. I'm sure most Canadians and most Americans know who Kevin O'Leary is. And Kevin O'Leary has a statement, I send my little dollar soldiers out to capture more little dollar soldiers so that they can go out and capture even more. And to me, that's the perfect analogy to what people need to do.
It really is. And you know, simplifying our lives to create space so that we can actually think, so that we can actually make things easier, like from a more effortless perspective, right? I find a lot of my clients are so busy. They're just so busy, they're rushing, they don't take the time. And so, you know, for the viewers, if that's not your situation, that's amazing, right? Because you probably feel a lot better, healthier from a day-to-day perspective. But there are so many opportunities to be rich. And, you know, for me personally, I am rich. I say it's great to be rich because rich to me is not just about money. You know, it's all fine and dandy to open a business, but if you hate doing that job every day, that's going to take a toll on you, right? So it's important that we align making money and investing money and making these financial choices with something that is fun to do or that feels good to us, that we don't go home after we've worked with somebody and grumble about it and have resentment about it or regret about it and I don't want to lose my money and, you know, this is a risk for me. Like, we need to start expanding our definition of wealth. Because I don't know about you, Eric, but I know a lot of very wealthy people that are really unhappy. So it's not just about wealth, right?
Well, the other thing is what I find a lot of people say is, oh, well, money's not interesting, money's not boring, money's not everything. It shouldn't always be about money. I won't argue that. It shouldn't always be about money, but God darn, I've lived with it and I've lived without it. And living with it is a hell of a lot more fun.
Sure
You
is.
want to help your church out, you need money to help your church out. You want to help out a charity, you got to have money to help out that charity. You want to spend time with your kids. Gee, if you want to spend time with your kids, you can't be busy going to work to pay the bills. Okay, so they say time is money, but the other thing is true too. Money is time. If you have money, you have time, you have choices. And that's what I don't think enough people understand. Yeah, it's nice to save money, nice to have an RRSP and a TFSA, but what are you doing it for? Like, why are you doing it? What's your purpose? I got asked this about 3 weeks ago, and man, it shook me to my core because it was like, what? Why am I doing this? Well, and you know what one of the dumb answers is? I love it. It's fun. I mean, gee, I like getting up in the morning and I look at the stock charts that I've got and I'm trying to find one that picks winners. And hey, I'm getting close. It's a little bit, but to me that was fun. I've been doing it for 3 years. Gee, that's fun. You've been doing it for 3 years. Yeah, it is because I get to pit my mediocre skills against the best in the industry. And boy, if I can run with the big dogs, that sure makes me feel good.
It's like a real life monopoly.
Yeah, it is. I want to be the one that owns the hotel on Park Place. Okay? I don't care if I had to buy 4 houses on Baltic to start. Because even, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad, but his theory is it's always 4 green houses equal 1 red hotel. And that's the best there is. I have students who say, how's the best way to start out? And my answer is, okay, you want to buy a house. Gee, why don't you buy a duplex or a triplex? Because yes, you should own where you live, but somebody else should pay the mortgage. And
isn't that the truth?
If you buy a duplex or a triplex, I agree, you're going to have to put up with tenants. Won't argue that. Nothing's easy. But wow.
Well, I beg to differ, but that's a whole nother video, right?
But I mean, realistically, if your tenants are paying your mortgage and you take that money that you would have been paying for a mortgage and put it into a TFSA and a decent mutual fund, 3 years from now, you can probably buy the house you wanted, the single family dwelling that you wanted, move in there, and you're going to have your 3 tenants from your triplex now paying for your mortgage and home. So instead of the money going to the mortgage, you throw that back into your TFSA, and 3 years later, you buy yourself a 4-plex.
So true. So true. Like, money is a game, and if we can slow ourselves down enough to realize this and realize that we're smart enough to play this game, guys, like everybody has the skills, but we have to slow down enough to get clarity on what we're doing now and to start to look at what we're doing now and saying, is this really how I want to spend my money? Like, I was writing a post about fast food, or I think it was a video I did. And like, so I've worked with families who spend $1,500 a month on fast food and restaurants. And it's not to judge, it's not. It's to bring awareness, because they are not consciously going out and doing that every day. They're just so busy in life that they're swiping and they're ordering and they're skip the dishes-ing that just happens. But I think that when they work with me and I share that information with them, now they can make a conscious choice. And a lot of people, I had a client once who was, quite jealous of the neighbor who had a mortgage burning party at age 50. And I was able to show them that they could have had that mortgage burning party as well, right? And so to me, one of the messages, we're getting to 9 o'clock, so we're going to open it up for questions. But one of the things I want to close with is that you're never too old to start. It's never too late to start. And it is really about having clarity about what you're doing now. And if it doesn't feel good, ask for help. Ask for help. And I know I offer 30-minute clarity calls for people, and that sometimes it's just enough information for them to get started. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure Eric also would offer that kind of, free consultation to just get people on that right track. Because let's face it, Eric, whether you let me know if you agree or not, but people have to believe in themselves first and foremost to make that first step, right? And I think that the belief in themselves is I can't do it for them. Like, I believe in all my clients, but at the end of the day, you have to value yourself as a person. You have to value your time. You have to value your energy. You have to value the time you spend at work away from whatever it is you'd rather be doing in order to start pursuing this path on achieving wealth and becoming rich and making your money work for you in the way that, Eric and I both think that you deserve. Right, Eric?
Yep. I'm probably one of the few people that runs a financial course where we actually start off with what are your beliefs about money and what are your beliefs about you being wealthy. That's kind of sounds like a really dumb place to start, and I get a lot of students who kind of scratch their head when they do that. And then I usually get the comment at lunch, I didn't understand why we started there, but now I understand. And you're right. I need to change my beliefs about money because we've been instructed by society. Finance is too complicated for you. Bull feathers. It is not. Anybody can understand it. It's a game. All you got to do is learn what the rules are and how to play.
And build from the bottom. And build from the bottom, because you can't be introduced at this level if you don't have that foundation to build upon. Like, that's a big part of why people are intimidated, right?
Well, that's where we start in a wealth accumulation course is, what are your thoughts about money? And then what are your thoughts about credit and what's standing in your way? Why can't you do this? Everybody wants to win $1 million or earn $1 million. They've never even seen $1 million. Like, how can you try to strive for something you can't even picture in your own head? Impossible. But gee, how much impact would an extra $1,000 a month make to your lifestyle? Everybody's seen $1,000. They can picture that. So, gee, you can picture it. You can probably achieve it. $1 million, you don't even know what it looks like. You're not getting there. But gee, throw a few more zeros on the back of 1,000 and suddenly it's $1 million.
That's right. So I'm going to end it here. It's past 9 o'clock. And, I want to open it up to the people that are here with us now. If they have any questions, to put it in the chat. And if not, I think I have a few questions as well.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to Joseph and Danielle for putting up with this kind of a broadcast where we're handicapped like we are. I'd like to thank you very much for sticking it out. People like you are going to get ahead because you put up with a lot of adversity to come and watch this. So congratulations and thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Eric, and thank you to you as well. Like I said, it's our first one, so we're going to be a little bit better prepared for the next one. But it is what it is, right? So I already asked that question. Okay. I think I asked all my questions that I had from other people. So if there's any questions from the participants, let us know. If there's not, we'll end the Zoom meeting. You know what I mean? And we'll leave it as is. But thank you, Eric. I think that was really valuable. And I know what I've learned something today, and I appreciate having you in my network in order to refer you to my clients, because that's exactly what I do when people have these types of questions, right, is refer them that I trust, that aren't going to make you feel bad, that aren't going to make you feel afraid. There's a lot of sales out there about fear, right? And I really am a little anti-fear. I would rather empower people. I would rather empower them from the ground up so that they can be successful in a rental property, in investments, in a TFSA, in whatever floats your boat, because there's a ton of ways to become rich, isn't there?
Well, that's the whole idea behind DIY Wealth. I want that to be a place where somebody can come, ask a question, get a simple, honest answer. There is no such thing as a dumb question. Everybody's heard that a million times. But if you don't know the answer, it's not a dumb question. And the beauty of it is, you're the only one that knows you don't know. Because once you ask, you know. So, you know, I can't stress enough that we're here to really help people. And I know it sounds corny, kind of fake, but you have no idea how much satisfaction I get when I walk out of a client's place and now they're going to get ahead and they're actually going to see on that next monthly statement, wow, this is better than before. And that just gives me this incredible sense of purpose and accomplishment. I know it's stupid and I know it sounds corny, but that's why I do this. Never meant to do this. Okay, this was for me only. But my students, when I saw them graduating after 14 years of being in school, and the poor guys didn't understand credit cards or mortgages or truck payments, I thought, nah, this can't go on. There's got to be a way to help these people, and that's how I started doing this. Otherwise, had no intentions of ever talking to somebody about it except me.
That's awesome.
So there you go.
Thank you so much,
If you
Eric.
need something, just ask.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to send out the recording, but I think we're going to listen to it and we may re-record it so that the quality is better. And we just want to thank you so much. And hopefully we will see you on the next webinar, which is a week tonight. I think it's November 8th. And the topic...
A week tonight.
A week tonight. And the topic is...
Saving.
How to make savings easy for you. And that's going to be a really interesting conversation too, isn't it, Eric? Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, because that's one where we're really... Good night.
Bye-bye.